Moving in with family a pretty long time ago, I overheard a girl from next door one night crying on the phone hysterically. She kept repeating, "But she's a murderer, she killed someone." Me kinda getting freaked out let out a cough and the girl suddenly went quiet and headed inside. I woke up the next day and on my way out noticed the house looked like no one was home, but there was an extension cord hanging out the window and the front door was slightly open. About a week went by and my mom asked if I had seen the neighbors at all because their door had been open the whole time. When I said no, we decided to go knock on the door. We just gave it a push since it was already open. We were surprised when we seen the house was completely trashed. We only walked into the kitchen and saw the same mess before we got out. On the way out, me not wanting to freak my mom out, I told her I was going to look around the yard and would meet her back home. I actually noticed the extension cord leading to a shed in the backyard. When I got there, I got a chill down my spine when I found myself staring at two fridges, one wrapped with duct tape. The one wrapped happened to be the one hooked to the cord. I had a buddy coming over while this was going on. I told him what was going on and had him follow me back there. We opened the first fridge and found a bunch of old frozen pizzas. The second one took a while because it was wrapped, but when we finally got it open we found a big blue plastic bag with another bag inside of it. It ended up only being some type of meat. It didn't look like anything nefarious, but definitely wasn't normal. I wasn't sure what to make of it, as we didn't find anything really crazy. We left everything alone and left. Eventually a crew came in and cleaned the place out and new family moved in sometime later. It was just odd to me and just thought of it after reading another story. Hope those people are all right. Me and my friends, 15M, 15M, and 14M, found a tunnel in the side of the hill last night. It had a grate on it, but a part of it was broken off so you could go down there. Today we decided to explore it. It definitely wasn't a tunnel for stormwater or sewage as it was square, about 5 by 5 feet. All three of us dropped down into it and started walking forward. There was some graffiti at the start, but at about 100 feet in there was none whatsoever, which in hindsight was extremely unsettling. We had brought some powerful flashlights, but we were still barely able to see past 15 feet in front of us. On the way in we heard some metallic clangs in the distance, but we decided it was just a car running over a manhole. The first stretch was about a 200 to 300 foot straight shot made entirely of cement. Then there was a right-hand turn and we saw the ceiling changed from cement to sheet metal with screws poking out from it. There was another roughly 150 to 200 feet of tunnel before a left-hand turn. Once we made the turn we saw, after about another 100 to 150 feet of tunnel that opened up into a room. One thing to note was that the tunnels were pretty much perfectly clean despite being unlit and seemingly unattended. There was no dust, mold, trash, dirt, or any crap whatsoever. In hindsight, this was also disturbing. We made it to the room and we noticed there was a manhole on the top, some stairs going up, an oval opening that led off to an area full of leaves, more of the square tunnel straight ahead, and finally, a dead raccoon on the floor. The raccoon seemed perfectly fine aside from it was scalped. A stretch of fur on top of the skull was completely gone, and you could see the bone from the skull. Weirdly enough, there was absolutely no blood at all. It was not rotting either, suggesting it had been recently killed. Once again, this was unnerving in hindsight. We ignored this and continued down the square tunnel. We saw a very small patch of light that was about 400 to 500 feet away and decided to head towards it. However, the tunnel seemed to be getting slightly smaller. It was roughly now 4.5 feet high but still about 5 feet wide. As we continued it kept on narrowing. There was another drop down about 100 feet before the exit, but nothing unusual there. Towards the last 50 feet, the tunnel was about 4 feet high and still 5 feet wide, and we noticed yet another dead raccoon. Once again, perfect condition, not rotten at all, very recently killed. When we finally popped out, we were right next to one of the gas stations in my neighborhood. We gave each other high fives, took a minute to rest because our backs were killing us due to all the crouching, and went in to get food. As we walked back to my house, we started talking about the raccoons and how weird that was. Then we realized how unbelievably clean it was and the strange lack of graffiti. We also talked about the metal clanging that we heard at the start that we thought was a car going over a manhole, but from what I heard the tunnel never went under a road and we never heard it again once we entered. We are all confused and feel unsettled all because of how wrong it was. It was too clean and the design wasn't normal by any means. There should have been graffiti or something in there, but it was spotless. Also, the raccoons concerned me to say the least. What killed them and why did it just leave them there? And what kind of tunnel was that? I've looked online and can't find anything. Before I tell my tale, you need some context. When I was young, my family were heavily Christian, making me spend my Sundays at service and Wednesdays at youth groups. I am not religious now, but those years instilled an awareness of the paranatural in me. As I grew up, I became more independent and rebellious, leading me to seek out forms of psychedelic spiritual enlightenment. It just so happened that I deemed that a priority over having a place to stay. As a young adult hooligan living in a small farm town in the middle of the Willamette Valley, there weren't a lot of opportunities for kids my age. You either partook in substances, worked in the wine industry, or got involved in the numerous cults around. It was about 10 p.m., and as my friend and I were bumming smokes from patrons behind the local bar. There were about 5 people, my friend and I excluded. We were all a tad bit tipsy, sharing tales and shooting the crap when a man walked out that I had never seen before. He was about 5.5 feet tall with odd proportions, donning a burly mustache that did not fit his face. He wore a cowboy hat 2 sizes too big, a leather jacket over a plain white tank top, leather pants and boots to finish off his outfit. He kind of just stood there, trying to be a part of the group yet excluded through some metaphysical divide. After about 10 minutes of loitering, he started talking. He mentioned it was his birthday, and referred to himself as the birthday boy. On and on he would only talk about how it was his birthday, that he needed a cigarette 'cause it was his birthday, that someone should buy him a drink for his birthday. I'm pretty sure it was his birthday. 30 minutes passed and the patrons slowly started filtering out until it was just the birthday boy, my friend, and I. He asked us if we knew where any abandoned buildings were, and if we could take him to one. I was already unnerved, but at this point my entire being was screaming at me to get away from him, like a switch had flipped and I could feel some sort of evil intention radiating from him. I gave some sort of vague direction of a non-existent building and told him goodbye. He asked me if I would take him there and celebrate his birthday with him and that he had gifts for us. I told him no, as I needed to make it to a friend's house to go to sleep. He told me, and I quote, "I'll see you again, Noah," and gave a huge inhuman grin. He then proceeded to sprint backwards for about 30 feet, yes backwards, spin around, and run in the direction I gave him. I looked at my friend and we both started running in the opposite direction, cutting through side streets and jumping a couple fences. We ended up making it to my friend's house and making it inside. About 20 minutes pass, we are chilling inside and smoking, and I hear someone singing "Happy Birthday to You." I peek out the window and it's the fucking birthday boy. I don't know how he found us, but he paced up and down the street for an hour or two until he gave up and sprinted away. I never saw the birthday boy again, but I'll never forget his parting sound. So I never thought I'd have my fears of supernatural things come true, but it happened nonetheless. I have a friend, we will be referred to as D, and I will be C. My friend, D, lives in a place where there are no neighbors, and he said there are skinwalkers haunting the woods surrounding his house. Even his mom and his whole family believes it. The first day we were there, we were training outside for the first day I was there. That night, we were outside at around 10 p.m., taking the trash out. We were talking and stuff, when I heard something snap followed by something falling. It was fall and I heard the leaves as it fell. When I looked up at the hill I heard it at, around 10 feet away from me, and D was a creature, a pale white and skinny creature getting up from the leaves and dislocating its own shoulder blades. I was petrified. It stared at me for 5 solid seconds before I used all the cardio training I've been doing and sprinted to the house. D just stared at it. The following day, we found a booby trap that was set to trip and animal was broken. The trap was 2 feet away from where I saw it. The second night, it was late and we were both in D's room. We heard a screech, a non-animal, non-human screech that sent shivers down my spine. He had seen this and said, "Do not be afraid, it feeds on fear." I had tried to stay calm. On the third and final day, afternoon, we were out and going to where he had claimed there was a weird portal/area that is connected to the skinwalker. Once we had arrived, it was blocked off by trees. We were weirded out and looked at each other. Everything went silent. The trees, winds, the cats outside, even the leaves falling. And then I saw it in the distance. We had both been creeped out and I just stared back. Me and him still talk about what we saw when I was there. Me and him love that. I'm gonna get a ghillie suit and when I can visit again, I'll be in those woods looking for it. A little backstory. Back when I first moved into the state I currently live in, I had done a bit of couch surfing before finally being able to find a roommate. We moved into a rather old apartment in the quieter part of the big city. When I say old, I mean radiator heating, electricity so bad that running too many things in sockets popped the breaker, etc. I was the first to move in because my roommate had not yet gotten into the state. They were moving from AZ. I had no furniture or anything, so I was sleeping on the floor. By default, I always close the door to the room I am sleeping in. Force of habit. Even if I am alone in a place. One thing I noticed about the door is that it took quite a bit of force to get it shut. No big deal, I got it closed. Went to bed and that was that. When I woke up, the door was wide open. I found it strange because I had gave the door a little tug before bunkering down on the floor. I didn't think much of it at the time until it kept happening. After a while, I noticed the apartment started to have a weird feeling. About a week later, my roommate finally arrived and moved in. On and off weird things would happen outside of the door being opened when I would wake up. There were sounds of someone rustling in the kitchen, footsteps long after both me and my roommate went to bed. I would know if it was them because they always turned the hallway lights on when going to the bathroom or kitchen. For the year and a half we lived there, that seemed to be the only bit of disturbances. Nothing major. Fast forward to a year later and I had a friend from CO come visit for a week. The night had crept up on us, and we were going to hit downtown the following morning rather early. So we turned in for the night. They slept on the pull-out couch in the living room. I went to my room and shut the door firmly. I passed out rather quickly. I was only out for an hour before I was awakened by a creaking noise and the jiggling of my bedroom's door handle. I opened my eyes only to watch the door slowly open and then stop after it was wide opened. I assumed that maybe I just didn't shut it properly, but it still felt weird. I got up, closed the door, pulled the hood of the hoodie I was wearing to bed up because it was freezing and in the dead of winter, and curled up back in bed. Only a few minutes had passed before I felt something snatch hold of the hood of my hoodie and yank back as if trying to tug me along with it. I went stone still and felt my heart racing. I had no idea what was happening, and I know I wasn't dreaming. Once everything had settled, my nerves included, I tried to get a little more sleep. Morning came and I went out of my room to meet my friend who was just waking up. I asked them if they heard my door opening at all during the night. They were confused, answered no, and got up for their morning routine. I cannot explain what happened. I may have been amping myself up out of fear, or it could have very well been a spirit in that apartment. Both are plausible, but it doesn't take away just how scary it was in the moment. I think about it now and then, and if I am going to be honest, I am so glad I moved out of that apartment later that year. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for daily horror videos. Stay tuned for more chills.